and welcome to the Eveness Vlog, a podcast vlog combo. This is March part 1, which will cover about the first 2 weeks of March in my making, crafting, a little bit of life thrown in, and whatever else comes up that I record to show you. So, welcome. I am based in Orlando, Florida. My name is Emily. EB is my initials, so that's where that comes from. And I am thrilled to just share my making with you. I love compiling this content and creating it. I felt like the last vlog was pretty dull, to be honest. I just didn't have my heart set in it. I was distracted and really busy on the life front, and wasn't in my heart wasn't fulfilled with the crafting process, but I shared it anyway to get it out there, and hopefully this one will have more upbeat, more crafty, and a lot more knitting. So first I'll talk about what I'm wearing. This is the Sun-Kissed Crop, I believe, by Knits and Knots Winnipeg. It is crochet, and it is DK, so I modified the pattern. The pattern is knit for fingering weight. I was feeling a little bit naked, but I'm also now feeling really warm, so that's why the naked part is why I put the shawl around me. This is Stephen West Shawlography, his mystery knit along from 2021. I am going to take it off just because I am feeling really warm. I knit this in Knit Picks, and I'm almost certain I will do the mystery shawl knit along again from Stephen West this year. And I realized this is what made me realize, which I'm a broken record, or made me realize or turned me into a process knitter, or at least partly a process knitter. And I just think it's absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. So, putting that aside because it's really warm. I think I said I'm in Orlando, Florida, and it is a gorgeous day. It's like 81 degrees outside. I have the window open, so hopefully there's not too much commotion out there, but it's just stunning. I was having a little bit of not a down morning, but I was feeling a lot of overwhelm the last couple of days, and today I am off. I put some regular clothes on, put some makeup on, and I always feel good in my hand knits. I took a walk outside in the gorgeous sunny weather, and I am feeling a lot better. So I figured, let me sit down and podcast and just share it with you, what's been going on lately with my knitting. So, let's start. I've got about 3 things to share with you, and probably you've all heard bits about them before. So, let's start here with the spinning. So I spin on a drop spindle. This is melanated boho bay fiber. I talked about it in the last podcast. I am attempting to fractal spin it, and if you want to know what that means, I am not the resource, but I do attempt to explain it in my last podcast if you want to know. So this, I don't think I showed you. Sorry for the wrinkling. This, which you can't see a good representation of, but this is the first half, or what will be 1 ply of the fiber wound on a toilet paper roll in a ball. And now I'm just working on the other half. This is just the very, very beginning, so I've got a ways to go, but I love the color combo, and I love the idea of fractal spinning. And even if it doesn't work out, like, I don't really think with spinning especially, like, I stopped talking in case there's any crinkling. Oh, I should put this back. With spinning especially, I don't really feel like you can mess it up. I mean, you can mess it up, but it really, like, it doesn't have to be perfect. And once you let go and realize the beauty in the thick and thin, and the more art yarn, in the changing colors, in the little nups that do appear, but I think get better once you wash it and smooth out a little bit. All of that is really just the beauty of your hand-spun yarn that you made with your own hands. So it's really beautiful, and I don't think, like I said, that you can really mess up spinning too much. It's just, as long as you embrace the beauty of the uniqueness of it, it's amazing. Okay, so that's that. So like I said, I haven't gotten too far, but I do enjoy spinning. It's nice to pick up every once in a while. I've never brought it outside with me or outside of the house. I've seen people do that with their drop spindle, but I'm still a pretty much a beginner. This is only my second, is it called a bat? My second sting of fiber, and then in my first Learn to Knit kit, I made 3 skeins out of that, so it's 3 small skeins, and this is my second, I think, bat it's called, a fiber, or braid? This was a braid. Anyway, like I said, still learning. Okay, moving on. Let's talk this. This is my sister's cardigan. It is the Homecoming Cardi by Shay Johnson. I put mine away, but I made one for myself already out of Malabrigo. You have seen it before. She is vegan. I'm making hers in cotton. She chose paint box yarns. I've said this all before, but here's what it's looking like right now. So I'm not loving it. I did gauge swatch. I didn't love the gauge swatch. I sent it to her. She was iffy about it, but then ultimately after some thought wanted to continue. And that is what we're doing. So, however, my gauge swatch was too tight. The pattern calls for a 5mm needle, and I gauge swatched. Usually I have a really loose gauge, so 4.5mm would have been fine, but there is knitting and purling in this cardigan, so I think that does tighten up my gauge a little bit instead of just knitting in the round the whole time, which is a bunch of knit stitches. There is purl stitches, and I believe the back and forth does tighten up my gauge. So anyway, I thought the 4.5 would be a fine needle to use. Turned out, I swatched with some lower needles too, because I wasn't loving the texture I was creating at first. So anyway, the gauge swatch ultimately was too tight, and I only have a certain amount of yarn, and I'm making size 2, so I was like, I'm gonna go. Moonlight just started playing. That's my cat. I love her playing, so I'm gonna leave her be, but hopefully it's not too annoying. Okay, so what I did was I knit the garter bottom portion. It's knit bottom up. I knit the bottom garter portion in 4.5mm needle, which is I believe what it's called for probably, and the body's supposed to be in 5. I do have a 5 in my Child Glue interchangeable needle set. However, this is metal, and I have learned from past experience with my looser tension. Metal needles and cellulose fibers, for me, don't jive too well. It just creates too much of a loose fabric, which maybe if I went down to a 4.5mm, now that I think about it, would work fine. But I also don't want to risk my needles coming. You know what, now that I think about it, maybe I could just do like a 4.5mm with this, then I have to re-gauge swatch. Thoughts. Okay, so maybe that would work. But what I thought I was gonna do, like I said, so this body, as of right now, is on a 5.5mm. These are just super cheap needles I got on Amazon ages and ages ago when I first started knitting. I'm sure there was a 5mm in there, but I'm also sure it broke because these tend to break easily. I do eventually very much want a Wicca, which I believe is how you say it, needle set, but right now I just haven't justified the purchase to myself enough. I still have enough of these cheapo Amazon ones from a long time ago. So what I was thinking about, now I'm like second guessing, which is one of my problems. I've just been overthinking so much lately. I need like a simple, straightforward project that I can just take my mind off everything else, like, and just relax and chill. So a knitting project that I'm overthinking, something simple like the needle size. So I originally was like, I'm just going for it with the 5.5mm needle, but I don't like it. It's way too loose in my opinion. I don't think it looks good. I don't like it. I even blocked it to see if anything would help, and it didn't. I don't like it. I don't think that stitch pattern looks pretty in this loose of a gauge. So what I was going to do, before I just had that thought about the metal needles in a smaller size, was, again, changing needles though. So for my birthday, I did ask for Wicca needles. And what my mom did was she got me 2 Wicca needle points, or needle tips. This is a US 8 5mm and a US 4 3.5mm. These are the 3.5 inches. They also have a 5-inch interchangeable set, and I would probably get the 5-inch interchangeable set whenever I do make that big purchase. But these are what I was thinking of using. So I googled I don't have the cords, right now I just have the tips. So I googled the cord and thought maybe I'll use these because this is a 5mm wooden needle. So it's exactly what I need, right? I mean, it's 3.5mm, so it is small. I mean, 3.5 inches, so it is small. Hopefully I'm making sense. I feel like I'm using a lot of numbers and talking, and this isn't really cohesive or concise, but hopefully it makes sense. So what I did do was I went to Google, typed in, you know, the Wicca cords for these needle tips, and found them on Firefly Fibers, which I have heard of from Caddy Jack's Knits. So it's based in Wisconsin, I believe, and I almost got so much more, but I didn't. I got 2 cords. I got the the smallest cord and the largest cord, which is a 16 inch and a 24 inch. So, yeah, I don't know. I purchased those. They were only $3 each, so really shipping was $6 and my total was $6. So, but yeah, I wanted to get more yarn, but I'm already like have too much yarn here, and I told you I think in the last video how I'm trying to work from stash because I really want to just have less in the house of the yarn. So I didn't make a yarn purchase, I just made a cord purchase. Anyway, but their store had such a large selection, especially their sale section also had a really good variety. So I definitely think I will be revisiting that down the line in the future. Who knows when, but I'm just going to keep that store in mind because it was beautiful. And these shipped within 12 hours. And it wasn't just the shipping label was printed, it was at the post office within 12 hours of my purchase. So I was super impressed with that. Anyway, so my thought was to use the 24-inch needles or cord, put this one, the 5mm on it, and then just go and see what it looks like. That's kind of what my thought was. I know that's reckless, but that was my thought until I had the thought about the smaller needle. I think I'm not going to overthink it. I think I'm going to go with this. I'm going to try this, see how it looks. If it works, I'll keep going. If it doesn't, I'll rip back and figure something else out. So, yeah. Anyways, I hope that made sense. That was a way longer ramble than I had intended for it to be. So, that's basically the progress on this is stalled. It was stalled until the cords come in. And also, it's not like I mean, it is a relatively easy project. It's an 8-row repeat, which for me isn't really memorizable exactly, so I have to refer back to the pattern. But once I like glance at the row, I'm like, oh yeah, I know what to do in this row. But some of it there is kind of a lot of knit two together, SSK, slips, stitches. Stitches are easy, but like I guess the SSKs and the knit two togethers, I sometimes have to look and you have to kind of count, so it's not completely mindless. Like if I'm watching a presentation or something, I don't know, I feel a little weary about working on this, but that leads me to my next project. So I talked about this, I don't know, 3 episodes ago, maybe more, maybe less. I have a lot of this yarn. This is Lion Brand Heartland acrylic. It's 100% acrylic. It's called a worsted weight. It's a really light worsted weight in my opinion. And I decided, I have about 6 balls of it. I decided to make a shawl. In the previous episode I'm referring to, I showed you like 6 or 7 shawl pattern ideas that I had for this yarn. And I narrowed it down to, ultimately I think I was going to do the cozy winter wrap. I believe it's what it's called. From Melanie Meilinger or something. She is German. However, I don't have the pattern. I have to purchase the pattern. It's not expensive. It's like a few bucks. But when I thought about it today, and it's a nice pattern. It's got like 1 cable, but I think the rest looks pretty simple. So I just feel like it is a little more of a simple knit. However, I went to kind of purchase it today and something just held me back. Basically, it's like I kind of want to support a Ukrainian designer with what's going on with Ukraine and Russia right now. And I know a Handmade Closet is donating most or all of her proceeds to Ukraine foundations that she's trusts, and she is originally from Ukraine. None of her patterns, shawl patterns, were in worsted weight, and then Ravelry recently showed off the feature of finding designers by country. There was a very beautiful worsted weight shawl that was a little bit similar, in my opinion, to the cozy winter wrap from a Ukrainian designer. On her Ravelry page, it does say she lives in Ukraine. And I did go to her Instagram. She's posting stories of other accounts with videos of the destruction in Ukraine. I looked at her posts, and her captions are in Russian according to Google Translate. I copied and pasted some of them and read, but they're mostly just knitting related posts. They don't talk about, and they're from like January was her last one, I think. So I don't know if she's in Ukraine right now. Again, I think according to Google Translate, her captions are in Russian, if that means anything. I'm not sure. But her profile picture is a yellow and blue heart, which indicates to me she's standing with Ukraine, so I don't know if it's the best way to go about it. I'll probably donate separately to other funds that I have seen, but I do want to donate to well-researched funds, and I am not that person that has all the resources for the best organizations that are helping Ukrainians on the ground. So I thought maybe purchasing from a Ukrainian designer would be nice in this moment, and then making, like I said, a separate donation as well. So that's kind of where my heart is right now. I want to knit the wrap I just found from this Ukrainian designer. I'll put her name, I'll put pictures of all the stuff that I'm talking about on screen, but maybe I'm completely off base. I don't know. I obviously can't speak Russian. I'm just relying on Google Translate, and I've never heard of her before. She has 18,000 followers. It seems like she has some kind of knit group or community that you can sign up for. So she is a kind of a relatively big name designer, at least in Europe, I'm assuming. But I still think I want to support her. I guess that was my only thing. The German designer had like 600 followers on Instagram, so she's much smaller with the cozy winter wrap. But it's still really beautiful, and I talked about in this other video that that's like the first shawl I ever saw that was like, I want to knit this. So it has a special place in my little sentimental heart that is meaningful. So that's my spiel. It was a lot longer than I thought it would be, but I think I may cast on a wrap, and just some of the pattern comments for the Ukrainian designer's wrap was that it's easily adjustable, so you can add more repeats, and I like that about it too. So, and then it was relatively simple. So that's where I'm at. Like I said, longer spiel than I expected. Something I did last night. So eBeaNit started out as a business selling my handmade items and accessories, and it's transitioning. I have some stuff in the shop at ebeanits.org if you want to check it out for any reason. I also have a newsletter, and I kind of stepped back from sending out newsletters. I did it about once a month, or I attempted to do it once a month in 2020 and part of 2021. The end of 2021, I just basically focused on knitting for myself, and I stepped back in a large way from my business. I decided I'm going in a direction. I'm a broken record, and you haven't heard any announcements because it's just such a long process, so maybe I should shut up about it. However, I've decided to, for now at least, like, even though I'm not actively making new collections, I do still have items in my shop, so still promoting it, especially since YouTube is my only source of social media right now. I'm not on Instagram or Facebook that much. I'm not on the apps, I deleted them from my phone, but like I just talked about, I did go on Instagram to check the designer, so I do go on it sometimes, but I'm not spending as much time there posting and checking stories on a daily basis or anything like that at all, which, I said it before, I'll say it again, amazing. I don't know where I was going with that. Oh, I guess I was just sharing that even as a small business, I have a newsletter if you want to keep up with me over there. And I made a newsletter last night, sent it out very late, like 2 a.m., but just because that's when it was finished, and I didn't want to procrastinate, so I sent it out. It was really fun to make, actually. I chit-chatted about this channel. I chit-chatted about my there was a recent knit-a-thon I participated in. I recently donated some of my knit accessories to local Illinois, to a local friend who has a classroom with children in need, and then a local homeless shelter in Illinois where I'm from. So yeah, not local to me at this exact moment, but local to my hometown. What else did anyway, if you want to check it out, just sign up for it. I'm going to try and do once a month, but the whole point has just been less pressure on myself. That's kind of been my big focus for the last 6 months or so. It's just trying to take this pressure that I put on myself and just release it, because it's not necessary. So, and then I did a lot of book talk. I've gotten really big into BookTube the last month or two, just watching book recommendations, and I finished a book that I started because of BookTube. BookTube is just a community of book lovers on YouTube. You're just like a knitting community. I highly recommend checking it out, because if you love to read like me, it's just more like-minded people. I'm sure there are, just like with the knitting community, I know there is issues of like consumerism, diversity, representation, so I'm not saying it's perfect, but I'm having fun discovering people who recommend books, because I also am a big book lover. So that was just a tangent, I guess. I just really wanted to share a few things that I have been into lately, and I included them in the newsletter that I wrote last night and sent out as well. So anyway, this is my first update for the March podcast vlog, and I will continue to show you my makes in the next few weeks. I hope I get this shawl cast on, and I'll let you know whatever happens with this whole thing. My sister is also visiting in March. She's a nanny, and her bosses are coming to Florida for a month because they can. So she's coming with them, and there is 1 or 2 weekends we'll be able to spend together. I don't think this will be done, but if it is, that would be nice. I can just give it to her. That's what I'm over here. Okay, I'm really gonna go now, and I'll see you next time. So, super quick update. I downloaded the pattern, read through it, the caramel shawl. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be as simple as I thought. It's definitely charted, but we'll see. Check-in, WIP update. So I have 3 WIPs in that spinning project that I showed you. I'm just going to tell you right now, spinning has not been done at all since we last talked. But these 3 I've made progress on. So let's start here. This is my sister's cardigan. And when I say progress, I mean very little. I've done like 4 rows since then. But the biggest thing is I got the needles that I ordered. So these are Licca 5mm US 8 3.5 inch needles. So they're nice to work with so far. The cord is 24 inch. I wish it was a little longer, but that was the longest they had for the 3.5 inch needles. The short needles aren't hurting my hands right now, and it's going fine. I'm just not super motivated to work on it, to be honest, but I can't really tell how the gauge is changing, but I think it's going to be fine with these needles. So that's the update there, is that I got the needles. Wish the cord was a little longer. I'm sure there is some kind of connector, as there is with other brands at least. So you can connect like 2 24-inch cords or whatever to make it longer. I just didn't purchase that, and this is acceptable enough. Yeah, that's the only downfall, is that the cord is 24 inches. But so far my stitches, knock on something, haven't come off, and I hope they do not. So, alright. Next thing. Okay, next project. This is the caramel shawl, I believe it's called. I really love it so far. This is really fun to work on. This is like my favorite project to work on right now. But I mentioned a few in my little last sit down that, oh, I'm going to cast on something simpler. Yeah, it's not simpler. There's a chart. You have to look at the chart. Well, some of the chart is memorizable, at least for me, not yet. The entire thing is not yet, but I think it's beautiful. Even this acrylic yarn looks really beautiful. And last time I also mentioned this is a pattern by a Ukrainian designer, and I also want to acknowledge that this is a very performative action. This is a performative action to purchase this and knit it right now. So I think something less performative obviously would be donating or something, and I just wanted to acknowledge that I don't by any means think this is like some great charitable mission on my part to be knitting the design. Not at all. And finally, and I highly, highly, highly recommend it. The pattern is very clear, and she always says, if you have any doubts, do this. If you have any doubts, check that. So I really like it so far. I think it's just turning out really nice, even though I'm like only a few inches in. Finally, I haven't talked about this. So I did tell you, okay, so I don't think I mentioned this yet because I was nervous about getting accepted, but I have decided to go back to school, and this is my first week of class. So while I'm reading the book, I find myself, especially when I'm tired, getting really antsy and not paying a lot of attention. So this is how I keep my hands occupied. It's literally just a stockinette double brim hat. Not even any ribbing. This is the double brim in here. I connected it last night after my chapter was done. And so I'm literally just not looking, just a repetitive action of knitting. This is super bulky yarn from the cardigan I took apart that you probably saw in the last couple of probably last 2 or 3 videos. Anyway, So this is just a super bulky acrylic yarn. It'll be a really cozy hat for whoever I donate it to or give it to. But yeah, it's literally just the repetitive action of stockinette knitting that this is for. Eventually, maybe my project will turn into a sock, or, you know, if I'm on a part of a body of a sweater or a sleeve where it's simply in the round stockinette. But for now, this is what I have on hand, and that is what I'm trying to do, is use up my stash. So there is my WIP update on these 3 WIPs. Alright, let's wrap it up for March, part 1. Today is the 15th, I believe, and I just want to show you kind of where I'm at with my WIPs, finished objects. Try and keep it brief, but I always say that and never do. And then I'll post this in the next few days, and I will be back towards the end, at the end of March, or maybe like April 1st, somewhere around there. So let's kind of do the traditional podcast format. What do people start with? Usually they're finished objects. So I have 2 identical double brim hats. I talked about this. There's about to be a big shuttle that goes by. I talked about this already, but okay, I'll say this again. I'm going back to school to get my NBA. It's an online NBA, and when I'm reading, I find it very, very helpful with focusing to just be knitting, just have something in my hands to just keep me seated and not my mind wandering from every which way. So these hats are literally just knitted. I originally kind of took the idea from Knit Brooks. She has a lot of double brim hats. She has one that's all stockinette like this, but a lot of hers other ones are textured. I have 2 of those patterns and I love them, but that's not what I was looking for this. It literally just needed 100% stockinette, so you could do this with the body of a sweater, or you could do a stockinette shawl, the half and half wrap, which has been popular the last few years in the knitting community, would be perfect. So this is what I chose because I'm still just trying to decrease the amount of yarn in my house. So this is yarn. This is Lion Brand Hometown USA, I believe. I don't know what hometown it is, but it's a light blue. I originally got it in a kit that I made a sweater, the color block cardigan or something like that, by Lion Brand, but it's my first ever cardigan. It was piece in pieces, and Bluebird Pine Shop, I believe, is the designer. However, loved it then, but I made a size too big for myself, and it just is obnoxiously large. I wasn't a fan of the super bulky acrylic. It was really heavy to wear. It made me sweat simply like moving. Anyway, I've said this all before, so that's what this yarn is for. I'm just casting on 44 stitches and literally just knitting about 8 inches or so, again, not being too precise, and then I join here, the double brim, and then I knit for a little while longer, do some simple decreases. I did just knit two together, then a row of knits, then knit 1, knit 2 together, then a row of knits, you know what I mean, all knit stitches, and then knit 2 together all the way around, and then I fastened off. So yeah, these are my 2. This one looks a little bit longer than this one, but it doesn't really matter. I don't have a reason for this. I obviously don't need them. They'll just be donated or something eventually. I have another one. This is how far I'm at in this other one that I'm working on right now. And this is, I'm literally just taking it from the sweater. So this is all I have left of the blue. It's the very bottom of the sweater. I have white in this same yarn that I'll probably go on to next. Eventually, I'll kind of show you. I didn't have anything in mind for this blue yarn, but I did have a scarf in mind for this, the white yarn. So if I do end up using this for the hats, obviously I'm going to bypass that scarf project, especially because right now I just don't have time for all the projects. But one of these videos in the next few, I'll just kind of show you what the patterns I had at least in mind that were on my radar for some of this yarn, and whether I use it or not. Use this yarn or not for these patterns, it's fine. I just, like to share and give ideas because obviously I really liked them if I was planning on making them. You can also always check out my Ravelry queue if you wanted to. Alright, so that's it. Let's go down to works in progress. There's not much to show. I have this next to me. This is my sister's cardigan. There's not much progress. I'm not even going to bother showing you. It's literally like, again, just a few rows further. Probably no point in showing you my spinning project either, but I'm going to, I guess, do it anyway. This is where I'm at. So, I don't know if this is helping, but I don't know. Anyway, that's where I'm at. What to say about this? I don't know, I had a good time spinning it the other day. I do feel like I kind of started rushing a little bit and made the yarn a little bit thicker. So then I tried to be more, to spin it much more thinly, so who knows? It might be a little bit of a thick and thin yarn, but again, as I talked about, that's the beauty of hand spun. So there's that. My final project is this. I haven't worked on it in a few days. I just don't have a lot of time, but it's honestly so beautiful. And yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna need a shawl for anytime soon, but or even if I'll keep it for myself or donate it, but or gift it. I am such a fan. Like, can you see it? So pretty. I'll hide myself. So yeah, it is really pretty. So this is where I'm at, really. Like, I did one whole repeat of the chart at this point, and now it's just repeating parts of it until I like the size. I definitely think I'm going to knit more than the pattern suggests, or larger than the pattern suggests, but I have 6 whole skeins of this yarn. I'm still on my first skein, and this is how much I have left of the first skein. So I've got plenty of yarn to make it however large I want to, and I'm just loving the pattern so much. So I just think it's turning out beautifully. I'm really happy with my choice to make this shawl. So that's my knitting projects. I wanted to mention I am reading this book. It is called Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Again, it feels like, you know, so there's a bunch, but I've been looking at book recommendations on YouTube. This is one of the top ones. I have read this author before. I first heard of her from Reese Witherspoon's book club. She suggested Daisy Jones and the Six. I didn't read that book yet, but I did read another one of her books. It's called 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and I loved that book. It was great. This book is also really good. I'm like halfway, if you can see my bookmark. I honestly wish I could just, I wish I would make the time, figure out how to make the time to just sit down and finish this. Like, I want to just read it in one sitting, honestly. It's so good. I don't know. Sorry, it's just the big shuttles going by again. I don't know if it'll be another 5-star read. It's like, it's a very good book, and I'll just leave it at that. I highly recommend it. It is about like a kind of celebrity family in the 80s. Growing up, it switches between 2 time periods. It's a really good book. Recommend this author, recommend these books. I wouldn't say lighthearted. It's a really easy, fun read. I would call it like a summer beach read, probably. I really like it. Anyway, I'm trying to like not give too much away, but at the same time kind of tell you it's really good. So anyway, I like that book a lot. Okay, cutting in later, because I forgot to mention I did finish a different book before this one, and it was just so-so, but I'm going to put it on the screen here anyway with my little blurb about it. It's a novel that follows 2 characters, 2 sisters, throughout most of their life. The older sister from, I don't know, middle school all the way until her death, and then the younger sister during that time period as well. And so it's a very long timeline of events. And if you are sensitive to certain topics, there is assault, rape, abortion, LGBTQ, bullying, and so a lot of like warnings if you don't want to read any of that content that is mentioned in the book. One of my criticisms, or one of the things I didn't love about it, was it really kind of flows over some of the life events because it goes through such a long period. The life events are really quick and not delved into, and I guess I like knowing how the characters are feeling more deeply and what they're going through and details, and some things are just a little bit glossed over, which was one of my critiques of the book. And in case that's your kind of book, then check it out. I have a new editing style, or I'm trying a new editing style. You already noticed it, I'm sure. With like, I'm kind of going on a lot of tangents. When I go on a tangent, I kind of take a step back and fast forward because I probably don't even want to listen to that. What's next? I want to tell you what I'm reading, watching, doing. It's really a lot of schoolwork. This book, these hats. I haven't been doing a lot much else, to be honest. I haven't been watching. Started How I Met Your Mother. It's fine so far. I also watched, this was my last one, but I watched Dollhouse. No, it's called Dollface. Dollface. It's another fun, like a fun show. 20s people, girls who in their 20s or 30s, late 20s, early 30s, living in LA or somewhere, New York, living in a big city, doing life. Yeah, I feel like that's about it. I'm gonna get this. And if you want to follow me here on YouTube. You can email me, ebknitwear@gmail.com. You can follow me at ebknits on platforms, but I am still off of social media, or I'm off Instagram and Facebook, I should say, and I'm still enjoying it very much. eBknits by Emily is my Ravelry if you want to see any of my knitting projects. And other than that, been a lot of news following for me. Russia, Ukraine, the war. Yeah, that's about it. School, following the news, getting a little bit of knitting and reading in outside of the schoolwork when I can. And then work. So that's about it in this spring. Have a wonderful few weeks. I will see you at the end of March, and stay safe.